23 years old, a clerk in a trading post. So bored he put a pistol to his own head, twice. Both times it misfired. 10 years later, that same man would hand a private company more territory than Britain itself. Not an army, not a king, a company that sold cloth, and somehow ended up owning a country. Robert Clive didn't come to India to build an empire. His father sent him because nobody at home knew what else to do with him. He'd been expelled from school more than once. He ran a gang that shook down shopkeepers in his hometown for protection money. So in 1744, at 18, he was shipped off to Madras, not as a soldier, not as an adventurer, but as a clerk for the East India Company. The job was counting bales of cotton, writing numbers in a ledger, day after day, in heat that never let up. A boy who'd been too wild for 3 schools was now the quietest man in the room, and it was killing him. Twice in those years, Clive tried to end his life. Twice, the gun failed to fire. He didn't take it as a miracle. He took it as a delay. Something in him decided, not yet. Then the war came looking for him. Britain and France were fighting for control of southern India, not with armies from home, but through local rulers each side propped up. The company didn't need clerks anymore. It needed men willing to die for a trading post. Clive volunteered. Arcot, 1751. Clive held a fort with a handful of men against a force many times larger. Not because he was a brilliant tactician, because he had nothing left to lose the day he arrived. And men like that are dangerous in a siege. He won. And the man who couldn't kill himself became the man half of southern India learned to fear. By 1757, Bengal was the richest province in India, and its ruler didn't trust the company at all. Siraj-ud-Dowlah commanded 50,000 men. Clive had 3,000. 50,000 against 3. On paper, that isn't a battle. That's a massacre waiting to happen. So Clive didn't prepare for a battle. He prepared a betrayal. Mir Jafar, the commander of the Nawab's own army, met secretly with Clive's men. The offer was simple: the throne of Bengal in exchange for one thing. On the day of the battle, his soldiers would not fight. June 23, 1757, the field at Plassey. On paper, a battle. In reality, most of the Nawab's army stood in the summer heat and watched their own ruler lose, because the man commanding them had already been bought. Siraj-ud-Dowlah fled the field. He was captured and killed within days. Here's what made Plassey different from every other colonial battle before it. Because the outcome was bought, not won, Clive didn't just get a victory, he got a ruler who owed him everything, a man who would do exactly what he was told. And that is what made everything after Plassey possible. Not conquest, something quieter, a takeover that never had to call itself one. The Nawab was dead, a puppet sat on his throne. Bengal wasn't officially British, it already belonged to Clive. After Plassey, Mir Jafar thanked Clive personally, not with a letter, not with a title, with money. Clive received a personal gift of roughly £234,000, enough in 18th century Britain to buy not one estate, but several. A clerk who'd spent 10 years counting cotton bales became one of the richest men of his era in a single afternoon. And this wasn't a one-time windfall, it was the model. And here's the strangest part. Back in London, almost nobody asked where the money was coming from. Not yet. The company's directors were technically trading tea and spices on paper. The real money came from somewhere else entirely. Taxes from conquered territory, gifts from puppet rulers, and the outright draining of Bengal's treasury. Historians still argue over the exact sums pulled out of Bengal in those first years after Plassey. The figures vary between sources. But on one point, there's no argument at all. This was personal enrichment on a scale without precedent, taken from the very population the company was supposed to be protecting, not looting. Clive went home, not as a soldier, as a landowner, a member of Parliament, a man who'd bought his way into the British elite, not with a name passed down through generations, but with someone else's country. Clive was back in London. The wealth was real. The respect, that hadn't followed him home yet. (1773). Parliament summoned Clive not as a hero, as a man who had questions to answer. Too much money, too fast, from methods no one wanted named out loud in the House of Commons. Clive defended himself. According to legend, he told Parliament that when he looked back on every opportunity he'd had to take even more, he was, in his own words, astonished at his own moderation. The exact wording of that line is disputed. It survives in more than one version, and historians can't confirm which is accurate. But the outcome is documented. Parliament formally cleared him of wrongdoing. He got the verdict he wanted, not guilty. And he lost the one thing he'd actually come home for, being remembered as a statesman instead of a man who got rich off a country he barely understood. Clive died in 1774, a year after the hearings. The official cause was never firmly established. Some sources point to a long illness, others point to something he chose himself. Historians are still divided, and that's not a detail worth glossing over just to make the ending cleaner. The boy who couldn't manage to kill himself at 23 got everything he thought he wanted: the money, the land, a permanent place in the history books. And then he died in a way we still can't fully explain. Just like Madras, all those years earlier, the question never really closed. The company Clive built into a superpower without a crown didn't need him to keep growing. Within 100 years, it would govern a third of the people on the planet. 13 years after Clive's death, a famine would sweep through Bengal, and the company that ran the province wouldn't stop it. If this story pulled you in, the easiest way to support the channel costs nothing. A like and a subscribe genuinely tell me to keep making these. And leave a comment, I mean that. Even if you think I got something wrong, even if you disagree with how I told this, say so. A critical comment helps me more than a quiet one. It's how this channel actually gets better instead of just staying the same. So let's talk about it down in the comments. What part of Clive's story stuck with you? What would you have wanted more of? Come join the conversation. I read every one.